Chapter 41 Predator. Forest Disturbance Arc. If it were the usual me, I'd be freaking out about how difficult it would be to win against the demon Lord or Disaster Galmudo, the yellow aura coiling around me. I can easily cut through with my sword, but receiving the butcher knife meat crusher would probably send me flying. But that's to be expected. Even Sean, who's stronger than me, lost in a contest of strength against him. Moreover, even Hakuru, who far exceeds me in sword skill, would not damage him. So I again tried to land an attack while darting around at high speeds, checking from every angle trying to find a weakness. I know it's pointless, but I see no reason to stop. Even if he lands a hit blowing me away, I just resume trying out attacks, confirming my own weakness. Thinking about it, my main forces consist of 5 people, including Shuna and Kurube. That is, they have all received one of my powers and exceeded my own abilities in them. Ranga's Black Lightning, Benimaru's Flame Manipulation, Shuna's Analyst, Hakuru's Perception Acceleration, Sean Herculean Strength and Body Strengthening, Soei's Magic Perception and Special Skills, Kurube's Researcher. In every skill, they exceed me. I can only be called strong because I have every skill that they do. If we fought one-on-one and I went all out, I think I could win. However, if all 5 gather, I would probably lose. And yet this orc surpassed all 5 of them, never being able to land the finishing blow. They were bound to run out of magic energy and perish. So even if I fought the orc fair and square, I could never win, right? Even if I fought fair and why are the only skills stronger than mine? Hakuro is stronger because his sword skill level is much higher. That much is perfectly understandable. But what about the rest? Actually, are they really stronger than me? The answer to that, in the first place, all my abilities I have gained from monsters. Since they are not skills I was born with, I need to take time to properly understand them. Just like having a license does not necessarily mean you can drive a car right now, and certainly does not mean you can win against a professional driver. However, there is a skill I have had since the moment I reincarnated into this world. It is a skill I have had from birth, one that I can really manipulate. That skill even I have nearly complete mastery of. Thus, I permit you to control my body. Move it as you please, great sage. Received, switching to battle mode, and thus a response to the previous question. Asterisk. Demon Lord or Disaster was bewildered. Just as he had intended to cook and eat the 5 strong demons, another one had appeared, a boring monster. He had thought the monster's magic energy was certainly high, easily surpassing that of the other 5. However, the monster had continued meaningless attacks, each one just as weak, once even inferior to the 5 before him. No matter how often the monster would have attacked, no damage would accumulate. Thus, the orc did not feel threatened. Thus, just when he had designated the monster as a good meal, the constant onslaught of attacks suddenly stopped, and she took off her mask, and the orc saw a beautiful young face of a silver-haired girl. What is she planning? The moment he thought that, Zasu, his arm elbow down, was cut away from his body, and where it used to be attached, a dark flame burned him, and when he looked, his enemy, with the appearance of a child, held a melting sword engulfed in a dark flame. Enemy? Yes, that was an enemy. He had considered her food. Now, however, was different. There was an overwhelming difference with the presence now before him. It didn't matter that his foe's weapon had burned away. Her abilities were so high that she didn't need it. Having met an enemy for the first time since evolving, the Demon Lord Orc Disaster's body tensed, and another strange feeling. How strange. His arm had not started regenerating. Confused, he looked at where his arm had been only to find a dark flame still burning and sealing his regeneration. Anger burned in his eyes, cutting his arm off at the shoulder. He had to regenerate, and he started swinging the butcher knife, meat crusher, with all his might. That small child cannot withstand even a single hit. However, the seemingly unarmed child casually lifted her arms, produced a sword out of thin air, and received the attack with the same sword that he had thought was burned by her skill. And when the butcher's knife came in contact with the sword, both were engulfed by the black flame and disappeared. He must go all out to devour her. The orc disaster's aura swelled, causing shockwaves on the battlefield. Filling up his fists with his aura, he attacked his enemy too armored. Her fists and repelled his attacks. Armored her fists and repelled his attacks. He saw magic bullets flying at him. Dodging those, he responded with Kakino, Caution, and Bu, Death March Dance. Colliding with the 7 bullets in the air, his magic bullets continued on. They were strengthened with starving ones and had a corrosive effect. While she would probably not die from this, she'd take some damage. Just as he had thought that, she stood up as if nothing happened, and the new armor was now covering her. His attack was probably deflected by that armor. It was true for him, so maybe his enemy was also in the middle of evolving. I hunger, I want to eat her. The Demon Lord Orc Disaster thought the 5 before had not mattered. All he wanted was to eat the one before him. He grabbed onto his enemy since he was stronger. If he fought long enough, he'd eventually crush her. Just when he thought that his leg was crushed, a round the house creak landed into him, causing his body to fall, but still he wouldn't let go. Releasing the yellow aura, he had it envelop his enemy. One of the effects of starving ones was to corrode and devour his enemies directly. And as his enemy's life dwindled, it would become his nutrient. I want to eat her, his head filled with that one tough one though. He directed his entire being into corroding her, and his enemy Having given up, struggling, gradually succumbed to asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Things proceeded just as I had planned. With the full support from the great sage, I was able to use the skills to their full potential. A never before seen optimized form of combat. I can even use black flame manipulation now. Moreover, body armor had changed into full armor transformation. It further strengthens my equipment. Skills I had previously hard time mastering, I now easily control with the help of from great sage. However, it is still hard and outdo your fundamental limitations. The longer this fight continues, the stronger the orc disaster may grow. Even if I know how to use my skills, it's not like my overall proficiency with them has increased. The orc disaster as well has just evolved and has poor control over them. Thus, this advantage is clearly temporary, which is why I must end this quickly. So I plan to lead the battle to a state where I can quickly overwhelm him with a skill I am superior at. And everything went according to plan. The orc disaster had begun corroding me, intending to devour. However, I also intend to devour you. I am a slime. My basic abilities are dissolve, absorb, regenerate. Her regeneration ability is similar to his. However, the slime body is naturally resistant to corrosion. Thus, I had planned from the beginning to eat you in this manner. In this manner, I made him believe that my body had melted and used that to envelop him, slowly moving up the arm. And by the time he had noticed, it was already too late. This was the standard method of combat for the slime race. No matter how much he rages now, he's already been covered by me. His attack nullified. Pointless, you must think. You pride yourself in your regenerative abilities, and my attack will have no effect. The battle has become a stalemate. I try to dissolve him, but his regeneration prevents his death. At the same time, my regenerative ability negates his corrosion. Each one attempts to devour the other like the Ouroboros. The one who eats the other first wins. Simple, isn't it? I had planned this in order to win. Rather than depending on skills I have yet to truly master, I decided to depend on my most fundamental ones, the power that I have. My slime abilities dissolve absorb mix incredibly well with Predator. Thus, at the same time as I began absorbing and dissolving this orc, I also activated Predator. I am a Predator, or disaster. The power that you hold, starving ones, is certainly strong. However, you are a scavenger. Eating anything and everything is certainly amazing, but it is my skill that specializes in hunting down and devouring prey. And while we have both been eating each other, I will devour your ability first. Using my ability, unique skill, Predator, my skill can analyze the abilities of living enemies, whereas yours only of the dead. This moment has decided the battle. How much time had passed as we attempt to eat each other, but believing in my victory, I focus on predating him, and I cannot lose. I have eaten my brethren. I cannot lose. I must become a demon lord. I have eaten Gelmudo-sama. I cannot lose. My brethren are starving. I cannot lose. Eating until we have our fill. Thoughts poured into me. Are you an idiot? I don't know what you're on, but you've already lost to me, but I cannot lose. I have eaten my brethren, and I am sinful, so I will not lose. It's pointless. Let me teach you something. It's survival of the fittest in this world. You've lost, so you die, but I cannot lose. If I die, my brethren will be burdened with my sins. I became sinful so that they won't starve. For that, I would do anything. I will become the demon lord so that no one starves. I will devour the hunger itself. That's right. I am demon lord or disaster, the devourer of worlds, and yet you're still going to die. But rest easy. I will devour your sins. What? You will devour my sins? Yeah. And not just yours, but also those of your kind. Mine, ours, all our sins. Aren't you greedy? That's right. I am greedy. Can you relax now? Once you have, just go to sleep. I cannot lose. But sleep, huh? I feel warm. Really one. Your destination is hardly tranquil. But you who have accepted my sins, thank you. Now my hunger has finally been fulfilled. Demon Lord Orc Disaster named Gilmodo. Just now, his consciousness has finally disappeared. Confirmed. Demon Lord Orc Disaster has disappeared. Unique skill Starving Ones has been absorbed by unique skill Predator. I have won. One who always starves could never have won against me who knows no hunger. And I open my eyes, burdened with the sins of his entire race. I have won. Sleep well, Demon Lord or Disaster Galmudo. My declaration resounded across the land, otherwise silent. And at that moment, the goblins and lizard men shouted for joy, even as the orcs lamented in despair. And thus, the orc invasion has been stopped. Based on his consciousness that had been flowing into me until now, Galmudo was in fact the cause of this incident. Furthermore, he was in fact supported by an unknown number of demon lords. That, however, the Orc Lord had learned before establishing himself, so was rather unsure about it. But I know enough to stay vigilant, and beside, I can't just leave the orcs as they are. The main problem has yet to be resolved. The following day, history will forever remember the birth of the Great Jura Forest Alliance and the conference where it began. End of chapter 41. Chapter 42. Forest Disturbance Arc, the Great Jura Forest Coalition. The war ended. I fought a truly strong opponent. Perhaps if he had finished his evolution, I probably would not have a method to defeat him. It's because we had fought now that I could win. I'd much rather had fought him before he had evolved. Though he had evolved, I am rather fortunate that I defeated him. But more importantly, right, I've gotten another unique skill. Well, though I actually haven't gotten the unique skill Starving Ones, I did absorb its potential. That is, my predator has changed into gluttony. Analyzing the skill made me want to seal it away. Nope, it's too dangerous of a skill. And while I was thinking these things, somehow my power feels as if though it's boiling. My wounds are healing faster. Have all been restored already? Yeah, I heard such voices. As I had thought, it's the effect of gluttony. Its effects are solution. Changing into unique skill, gluttony has added the following effects. Decay, the ability to decompose the target. Ability to add a composition status effect. There is now a chance of acquiring an ability after consuming only a part of the monster's corpse. Random supply, whether a subordinate or not, you can now grant an ability onto a monster with whom you have a relationship, limited by the target's inherent magical energy. Food chain, it is now possible to acquire skills from your subordinates, all of them. These three have become your power, is what it said. The 5 original abilities of Predator stayed the same, and these 3 were added. And along with that, my stomach capacity seems to have doubled. So does this mean that I can now use Benimaru and Ranga's skill that they've gotten from evolution? Solution, it is possible. Seriously? So whenever they get stronger, I get stronger. And the opposite is also true. How terrifying this power had become. Though, as you'd expect, I can't share knowledge this way or transmit magic. Of course, proficiency, I also need to raise on my own. Daily effort is important after all. But seriously, what an absurd power I got my hands on, as expected of Orc Disaster. It's a shame I couldn't eat the clown earlier, but I did get some spare change from him. Particularly, through pure luck, I have gotten flight magic. I don't need incantations to use it. I can fly around just by willing to do so. Well, I slowly practiced with it, and along the way, learned to fly at supersonic speeds. But more than getting my hands on unique skills and such, I was able to optimize Great Sage and further integrate all my skills. For example, I had thought that I can't mimic all monsters at a time, but I was wrong. And if you're wondering about Devil Transformation, my human version has acquired a new strongest form. This too, I will carefully research later. This all aside, I did just mention that the war has ended. The battlefield was filled with happiness, sadness, and despair. Now then, I think it every time after a battle, but more troublesome than the war itself are the reparations afterwards. The day after the Orc disaster was exterminated, in the center of the marshes, in a temporary tent, the representative of every race has gathered. From our side came I, Benemaru, Sean, Hakuro, and Zoe. Ranga is lurking within my shadow as always. I am in my slime form, sitting on Sean's knees. Since I had shown them my true form when I defeated Orc Disaster, there is no need to conceal it now. From the lizard men, the head, guard captain, and guard vice captain, Gabil is imprisoned for treason. Even if they are parent and child, insubordination is bad. Though he's an idiot, he does have some amusing points. And since it's not the time to discuss his sentence, we'll just leave him there for now. The orcs sent the 1 remaining orc general and 10 clan chief representatives. They were all pale, depression visible on their faces. The reason for the previous chaos was indubitably the orcs. No matter how hard anyone tries to pin all the blame on the orc lord's manipulation, they were clearly not blameless, and it is because they understand this fact that their expressions are so dark. According to what Zoe had gathered, they didn't prepare that much food. Through cannibalism and the effects of the unique skill, they were able to advance while starving. Now that they have lost the skill's effect, they can possibly eat their brethren. Their rather unfortunate situation made the atmosphere in the room even heavier. They are fully expecting to be demanded to take responsibility for the war, but they also know that they can possibly pay reparations, as in the first place, the main cause for the war was the perpetually starving orcs and their leaders who could do naught about it. Even considering that their numbers have decreased, there are still 150,000 of them. There's not enough food to feed them all, and the fact that even with this many troops, they can continue combat simply emphasizes just how concerned the orcs are. If they did not have the starving ones killed, they would have all perished from hunger. Though there are 150,000 of them, that also includes women, children, and the young. It was a mass exodus of the orc race. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The cause was a severe famine. The magic continent is a land with fertile soil under the protection of the demon lords. Many powerful demonic beasts and demons inhabit it, but thanks to the demon lords, it is safe. However, there was a price for safety, a steep tax. Those who wanted to live on fertile lands had to provide a large amount of crop, or who reproduced quickly, worked in the mines, and toiled the fields and were necessary to the demon lords. However, those who could not pay the tax were immediately killed. The demon lord never lends a helping hand. Aiming for the abundant resources, many monsters attack. Those that have not paid the protection tax are not protected. Thus, that land inevitably becomes dangerous. The fertile orcs, even if the majority of them were killed, would soon enough restore their population to needed levels. Though there was a need to control their number, the demon lords decided that the extras would die anyways. Now, thanks to a great famine, they could not pay their tax, thus losing the protection of the demon lords. They decided to flee those lands in search of a safe haven. While beset by hunger, the orc lord was born among them. But until then, they would never fight anyone stronger than themselves, and thus wondering They have made their way to Jura Forest's outskirts. Around that time, a devil named Galmodo offered them a hand. Oblivious to his machinations, they decided to accept his offer, and thus following his directions, they plunged Jura Forest into chaos. Asterisk. The conference began with a heavy atmosphere. Hakuro presided over it. I had originally asked the Lizardman's guard captain to do it, but he refused. That role is too much for one such as I, he said and turned me down. And since this wasn't something I could delegate to the defeated, I imposed, asked the most fitting man, Hakuro, to do it. Hakuro had declared the conference open, but no one said anything. Everyone was looking at me. How annoying. I seriously hate conference. Well, it can't be helped. Before we begin the conference, I wish to share the information I have gathered. Listen, I explained at my words, everyone's expressions hardened, and they fixated their cases on me. And then I conveyed the information I have gotten from Zoe and Orc Disaster, the cause for the Orc uprising and their current situation. The Orc representatives, not expecting me to bring these things up, stared at me with wonder. There are a few who shed tears listening to me. They were fully convinced that they'd all be executed without a chance to explain themselves. Then my story ended. In giving Hakuro the signal, I continued the conference. Ahem. Now then, the first, let's confirm the casualties, and thus the discussion started. Lizardmen's had discussed their casualties. Listening to his report, the orcs hid their faces and stayed silent. Now then, head on up. Do you have any demands for the orcs? After discussing the losses, the discussion proceeded to discuss appropriate payment. Though I've never experienced an actual war before, so I wouldn't know, but they probably have the winner demand things from the loser. I couldn't prevent the conversation from going this way. Nothing specific. This victory was not wrought by our strength. We were saved by Rimuru Dono. Abandoning the right to reparations, the head thus replied, not like they could do much in the first place, though. All right, let's let the orcs speak now. But when I had just looked at them, please pardon my interruption. Please allow me to compensate for this incident with my life. Of course, I understand that it is not enough, but I have no followers to add. Orc Generals calls out, falling prostrate before me. He desperately pleads, I have become a B-Rock monster and gained quite a lot of magical energy, so please forgive the rest with my death, is what he says. Not that I'm planning on that, but that's not the problematic point. Damn it, conferences are annoying. Let's just do this my way. Wait, Rimura-sama has something to say. Hakuro intervened. The Orc General shut up and looked at me. The rest as well quietly waited for me to speak, just the atmosphere that I hate. So this is my first conference, so I'm not sure I can handle this well. Thus, I'll just say what I think. After that, I want you to all discuss my words. Having said that, I proceeded to discuss my thoughts. First, that I thought that we should not pursue the discussion about the orc scenes. Next, that I wanted to continue the alliance with the Lizardmen. And finally, that I wanted the orcs to join that alliance. And those are my thoughts. I bet you have many things you want to say, but know this. I will not permit any punishment to befall the orcs. That is because I have thus promised to Orc Disaster. I will bear all their sins. If you got something to complain about, let me hear it. So I declared. The orcs stared at me amazed. In contrast to them, the head asked a question. We are completely satisfied with what you have said. However, we do have a question. What is it? Now that the war has ended, why do we need an alliance? About that, to explain. And thus I explained that point further. My plan to create the Great Jura Forest Coalition. In the first place, if we ended the conversation with no punishment, dismissed, the orcs would simply die from hunger. Lacking in discipline, some would attack lizardmen and goblin villages. Their hunger was the cause for this mess. In the first place, it's meaningless if we don't solve it, and that's why we'll form a coalition. The lizardmen can offer fertile fishing grounds and fish. The goblins can't expect much from them. My city can provide processed goods, and the orcs excel at manual labor. They can inhabit the lands away from the marshes, those originally owned by the ogres. That place is also by a foot of a mountain with abundant resources. Speaking of area alone, all 150,000 couldn't possibly all live on the same land, but they could split into mountain district, mountain-based district, river district, and the forest district, and thus live. If the particular large clans split into individual districts, this will work somehow. We'll provide the technical support about constructing houses, housing, and such. However, we'll work the orcs hard in return. After all, our village's population is too small, and many things are left undone. That I want to finish all in one go. That much I explained to them. Everyone heard the same explanation. Unlike last time, this declaration left everybody greatly excited. Their fears wiped away. A fire of hope was lit in their hearts. For some reason, Sean, who had been holding me, bent her back and haughtily laughed. That, of course, I could not permit. However, then her breast touched me with a puyon. Whatever, I permit it. I am a gracious lord. You'd permit us to join your coalition? The orc generally fearfully asked. You can work right? I won't let you slack off. Of course, we'll work as if our lives depended on it. The orcs trembled, tears falling from their eyes. We have no objections, rather. We'd like aid you. The lizardman's head also voiced his agreement. Seems like they've all accepted my plan. Now that we have everyone's consent, the Great Jura Forest Coalition is born. However, a problem remains, an unnaturally troubling worrisome problem. I'm sorry for bringing this up while you're rejoicing, but quiet. Now that everyone has agreed, I want us to tackle the largest problem. That is provision. How do we prevent 150,000 orcs from starving? I want everyone to lend me their wisdom in this. The last great perplexity, provision, or rather the lack of thereof, is the problem. The orcs have enough for 3 days. Even if we plant crops now, we won't make it in time. If we fish for food, we'll clean the lake dry. A troubling dilemma is upon us. The lizard men have enough food to feed 10,000 for half a year. Even if we gave all of that up, 150,000 would eat it in 12 days. So what can we do? Everyone was scratching their heads thinking about it. And then, pardon the interruption during the conference, there is an emissary that separately seeks your audience. A lizard man had run in saying, "It seems to be very flustered." After I nodded to Hakuru, "Show them in," Hakuru responded, sending the soldier away. An emissary from whom? As if answering my question, a single person had entered the tent, a dryad, a beautiful girl with green hair, like the people of Europe. Her skin was white with well-defined facial features, plump lips, and blue eyes that suit her well. If measured in human years, she'd looked about 16 to 18 years old, a guardian spirit of the Trians. Among the monsters, she would rank among the top of A rank. Many voiced their surprise when she entered. Well, you'd be surprised, as I had later. It's been many hundreds of years since a dryad Layato has last been seen. With long lifespans, immortal actually, these women rarely leave their sacred dwellings. You would normally be happy if they had sent a messenger. Dryad Layato looked around the room and focused her eyes on me. "Pleased to meet you, everyone. I am a Dryad Layato trainee. Pleased to make your acquaintance. I had come today to exterminate the Orc Lord, but that seems to have been done already. I was planning to leave a second ago, but decided to at least greet everyone, and then I found that you are troubled over a certain problem. I asked that you listen to what I have to say," she said with a bright smile, but she also seemed perfectly calm, and immediately continued her speech. "It seemed you lack provisions, correct? I believe we could assist with that. However, we ask that our beneficiaries, the Trians, are allowed to join your coalition. We have no reason to reject. Actually, we would gladly accept. However, we are grateful for the offer, but why would you want to join the coalition?" I asked on everyone's behalf. And when I did, the Trians are a race that hardly move, thus they have little interaction with other races. Should they be attacked by a powerful opponent or face some natural disaster, they would be helpless. We, the Dryads, could escape on our own, but we are few in number. If we were to join in an alliance, we could receive help when needed, right? She responded with a pure smile. Could she be willing to put her trust in our goodwill? Do you honestly believe strangers' words? Since you haven't met that many, you aren't even doubting them, right? I couldn't read any hidden intentions from her smile. Of course, I have no intention of betraying her. However, a girl like her would find herself in danger due to her trust. Of course, when troubled, our Lord Rimurosama would help somehow. With a fufun, Sean selfishly replied, "Don't forget to mention that there are also things I can do, Mas." I wanted to interject, but it was too late. "Ma, it was as I thought. In that case, please take care of us from now on." She ended the conversation with a smile. My opinion was completely ignored the moment it mattered, but whatever. I guess I must concede here. Thus, the Great Zero Forest Coalition was established. Its members, Rimuro's Happy Bunch, Goblins, Lizardmen, Orcs, Tyrians, and leading this coalition, hopefully temporarily, is me. This day, my name was for the first time etched into the history of this world. Status: name, Rimuru, Disaster, Tempest. Species: Slime, human form, possible. Divine Protection, the Storm Crest. Title: One who leads demons. Magic: Battle Magic, Flight Magic. Skills: Slime, specific skills. Absorb, Dissolve, Regenerate, EX. Unique skill: Great Sage, Thought Acceleration, Analysis, Parallel Processing, Incantation, Nullification, All of Creation. Unique skill: Gluttony, Stomach, Mimicry, Separation, Decay, Supply Food Chain. Shapeshifter, Fusion, Separation. Extra skills: Segmenting, Black Flame, Black Lightning, Barrier, Shadow Step. Daily skills: Magic Perception, Heat Detection, Auditory Perception, Supreme Olfaction, Intimidation, Herculean Strength. Battle skills: Noxious and Paralysis Breath, Full Body Armor, Sticky Thread, Telepathic Communication, Cloning, Devil Transformation, Flame Transformation, Mimicking, Flame Giant, Black Wolf, Black Snake, Lizard Giant, Spider Giant Spider, Giant Blood, Centipede, Goblin Orc. Resistances: Thermal Fluctuation, Resistance EX, Physical Damage Resistance, Pain Resistance, Heat Attack Resistance, Paralysis Resistance, Corrosion Resistance, Electricity Resistance. End of Chapter 42. Chapter 43, War Reparations. Forest Disturbance Arc. The day the coalition was established would become a day of great commemoration for the monsters, because each one of them received a name. Just kidding. Even if it sounds cool, you've got to think about who would be giving them names. There's 150,000. Damn it, that's just reckless. I mean, I had gone into a 3-day hibernation after naming nearly 500 goblins. By the time I named all 150,000, they'd die from hunger. I was planning to just ignore it this time, but in any case, I also need to devour their sins. And somehow, while they had risen up to rank C+, it seems that they'll be returning back to D in about 2 weeks. They were merely strengthened by the Orc Lord's abilities, and once they lose their magic energy, I will eat it and bestow it back upon them. Thus I will be able to name them without tiring needlessly. So there is no problem naming them, except that I'll run out of simple letter combinations, even if I give start giving up the same names in different districts. Managing the process will be a pain. There's only one thing to do, the most extreme and supreme method. I will name them based on a series with infinite potential. That's right, numbers. Sounds too much like a citizen's registration number. Well, frankly, this is the most efficient method, since they are able to at least line up information. I had them line up in the marshes. Would they hate being named on a whim? I had that passing thought, but once the magical energy disappears, they'll evolve into an uncontrollable mob of 150,000. That's too many to let loose. Being only a D-rank, they wouldn't pose much of a threat. However, I can see them breaking into private property. Besides, as they are, I can't expect much of their work skills, making the coalition rather pointless. Also, if they evolve, their status increases and their reproductive ability decreases. That much we know from the time I named the goblins. Thus, I'll be exercising Victor's rights here. The great clans shall be separated by their names. Yama, mountain; Oka, hill; Hora, cave; Umi, sea; Kawa, river; Ko, lake; Mori, forest; Fusa, grass; and Suna, sun. For example, a man from the mountains would be Yama 1. A woman would be Yama 1F. That's how I would diversify their names. Honestly, managing this will still be a pain for kids. I decided to go with something like Yama 1, Yama 1 to 1M, for example. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to give with some name or letter combination instead, but I'll leave that to them for new names. And thus, I absorbed their magical energy and gave them names instead. I first aligned them by clan, then separated them by gender, and began giving them names as you'd expect. It took a while. However, I was able to give them all names without worrying endlessly. They were given names by their place in the line. I didn't try to match names for parents and children. They should just name themselves if unsatisfied. In this fashion, I went on naming them all. I then had the clan representatives conduct a census, but since they had no paper, it was only to make sure no mistakes were made. But in reality, there was nothing to worry about. Those named could hardly forget it. Unlike humans, monsters always know the name etched on their soul. I had started to give and each one of them a name, taking no more than 5 seconds per person. However, giving each one a name still took 10 days. Of course, while I was naming them without rest, I couldn't just have Benimaru and the rest having fun. I had the Dryad trainee escort them to the Trans community in order to transport the food. Would it really be enough to feed 150,000? While I had such worries, I could only trust in her words. At the very least, I hope there is enough to last them a year. I didn't worry about the carriers at all. The fundamental worry of war is logistics. After all, allowing the front line to starve welcomes defeat. No matter how much of a demon each one of them is, carrying enough food for all the orcs must be difficult. However, the storm wolves, the moment Ranga had evolved into Tempest Star Wolf, had evolved into Star Wolves. Each one is at least B rank now, a high-ranking monster. Their numbers are still at 100, but they have unlocked a leader evolution variation. And let's not forget to mention that they can all use Shadow Step now. They can't move instantaneously like Zoe or Rangatu, but they can easily move faster than sound. And they now move ignoring any obstacle straight to their target. Closing long distance with every step, they are moving at 3 times their original speed. In short, really quickly. So I also had a strong Star Wolves handle ferrying the provisions over. If we use the courage, the trip with the necessary detour would take 2 months. This way, a round trip takes only a day. However, the goblin riders cannot journey with them. I don't know if this is something they can learn through practice, but I want them to try. So having remained with me, the goblins are helping arranging the orcs. Thus, we came up with a method to procure food, which lead me to worry about food reserves. I mean, giants are monsters who survive on water, sunlight, and air alone. They would grow fruits using their magical energy, but there was no one to eat them. They were meant for the race residing in the Holy Lands, but the immortal race just had them accumulate. Moreover, the fruit being magical, it does not rot no matter how much time passes. By the way, as I learned later, this fruit is sold as a rare ingredient called dried giant in human markets. It's really hard to find and can be sold for a large amount of money. The reason for the price is its abundant magical energy. Just 1 drop can keep you going for 7 days without feeling hunger. And another reason for the high price is the fact that giants don't interact with other races, and the troublesome dryads who manage this product give it out sometimes as a present. When I earned this fact, I had mild regrets about giving it out to the orcs for free, but it is what it is. And thus, thanks to the dryad trainees' guidance, we were able to acquire food. 10 days later, exhausted, I almost ran out of numbers to use. Tired. However, I was also filled with a sense of accomplishment. 150,000, just counting that high is annoying. Well, by the time I finished naming them, we also finished dividing up the food, 50 pieces each. You probably understand that when they ran out, they starved. So everyone wore serious expressions when accepting the food. After being named, the orcs evolved into high orcs. But since they weren't named using my magical energy, there was no master-servant relationship between us. Everything rests on their sincere promise to join and support our coalition. Their strength did reach up to C+ immediately after evolving, but they settled comfortably in the C rank zone. Considering they were D ranks originally, this should be good enough. More importantly, they have gotten smarter while preserving their special characteristics. They evolved into a race that can adapt to and make use of any situation. After thanking me, they dispersed each to their lands. Overseeing this were 10 goblin riders per group. Once they confirm the location, we plan to assist them with setting up tents and guiding them on necessary skills. We will set up each and every community, though this won't be for a while, but they'll eventually settle down and their living standards should improve. Thus we saw the orcs off, which reminded of a certain individual. The orc general insisted that I work him to my pleasure, but I did want another laborer. Whatever. Let's just let him in. I also need to figure out what to do with the black full plate armor clad 2,000 strong elite orc army. Then them I cannot name using a district. What should I do? Since they have a yellow aura about them, I decided to name them using a color of numbers. And numbers. I glance over the orc army and have them line up according to my wishes. Recently, I can use my great sage appraisal ability simply by looking, just like Shuna does. As expected of Botany, food chain ability. It's super effective. And so I named assigned numbers to everyone except the Orc General. Thus the later famous Yellow Core was born. Numbers assigned indiscriminately of gender, since there could be no gender inequality among fellow warriors. I'll be later dispatching them to every community as production workers. At the present, there's no choice but to have them do this kind of work. Now about the Orc General. I'm going to ignore any feeling of foreboding and decide on a name. I'll incorporate the Orc Lord's ambition, the one he got from Galmudo. Just thinking about that clown's face makes me angry. But to the orcs, he's an important benefactor. I don't care much about his expectations and I don't have anything to base it on. So the name I will bestow upon him, with respect given to Orc Disaster's dying wish, he shall henceforth be known as Gerudo. At that moment, the Orc General's body was enveloped in a yellow aura and he began evolving. At the same time, I lost a lot of magical energy. Crap, so it really came to this. As always, I entered the lower activity state, sleep mode. In the following day, should I say, just as expected or something, my premonition was spot on. The Orc elite has all evolved into high orcs. Though they possessed strength almost surpassing C+ rank, they were able to retain that level. All in all, they have evolved into rather powerful warriors. Considering that Goblin Riders are also ranked C+, I seem to have acquired a rather powerful army. While though Goblin Riders are ranked thus, they really should be evaluated together with the Star Wolves, so perhaps I shouldn't be comparing them. Now then, the problematic Orc General, or rather Gerudo, he had gained the unique skill Gourmet, with abilities, stomach supply, and demand. His magic energy is also pretty high, almost reaching A rank. As expected, he no longer has any of the abilities he got from cannibalizing, simply because he has no need for them. This skill he got probably because he wished for it from the bottom of his heart. Perhaps because he had endured the pain and suffering, he became such a rational and dignified monster. Can I be satisfied with such a subordinate? I had such a fleeting thought but decided to ignore it. If he desired to go on independent, I would permit it, though he doesn't seem to want to do that, and perhaps the death march has finally come to an end. Was all their suffering up until now the effect of Gulmuda's skill that I wouldn't know? Perhaps that clown was actually a really powerful guy, I joked to myself. The goblin soldiers have finally returned, their numbers greatly reduced with only 4,000 survivors. Are they okay? I worried slightly, but this is their problem and not something I will intervene. Too much intervention would be harmful to them. Now then, should we take our leave? Let's return to control of this area back to the lizardmen. Say our farewells to the head and head of. Though our time here was a mere 3 weeks, this war felt rather long. I myself seem to have fought alone for a long time. The forest disturbance story thus comes to end. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Kabil was brought before the lizardman's head, his father. The moment the fighting ended, he was thrown into prison. He was fed every morning and every evening, but no one had said anything. This kind of lifestyle continued on for 2 weeks. After all, he was a rebel. That much was true. While he acted in what he believed was everyone's best interests, his foolishness almost annihilated the entire race. It was his fault. He had no excuses to say, nor any desire to come up with any. He would probably face the death penalty, a fact he accepted, but Galmudo, who had betrayed him, ignoring that fact, the slime who had saved him, a lowly monster, that's how he referred to the slime. While that was not a mistake, it also was. That slime is special, unique, and not named a truly special monster. If he could have one final wish, his one to ask, why did you save me? The mislead, worthless me, a complete idiot. That thought was on his mind every day for 2 weeks. He stood before his father, the atmosphere heavy. They looked each other in the eye. Father who, as usual, did not show his emotion. A death penalty, huh? He agreed. A leader cannot show weakness. He must uphold law at all cost. So there's no way he could hate him. He resolved himself to quietly accept his punishment. I will pass judgment. Gabil, you are exiled. You are forbidden to ever call yourself a lizardman. Furthermore, you are forbidden to ever return. Leave. Show your face among us no longer. What did he say? His father's guards led him by the arms outside the caves. The head threw him out. And to the confused Gabil, don't forget this. Don't lose it, okay? He was told, and something was thrown to him, along with his things, a long wrapped package. Just from the weight, he understood. It was a magic weapon, water vortex spear, tears falling from Gabil's eyes. He wanted to say something to his father, but words wouldn't come out. He was in exile, filled with various emotions. He could only bow in gratitude. And without looking back, he continued onward to the city under construction he had once visited. After walking a bit, please wait a minute, Gabil-sama. Someone called out to him, his 100 subordinates. What are you doing, idiots? I was exiled. It doesn't matter to us. We follow Gabil-sama. If you are exiled, then so we are. Yeah, they responded with a smile. What fools they are. This is no place to shed tears. Like my father, I must learn to act with dignity, he thought. What will I do with you? Got it. Follow me. And thus he walked, filled with a different kind of self-confidence than before. Gabriel's group joined up with Rimuru a month later. End of chapter 43. Chapter 44. And thus we finished the city. Now that the war ended, we might as well return to our city. Honestly, returning back with an extra 2,000 or so followers is tiresome. So I'll lead the return march to Hakuro. Soei was already returned to let everyone know about victory. We also need to set up some temporary housing for the newcomers. After I sent him back, I sat down to decide who'd rush back with me. Ranga can carry 2 back, and Star Leader can carry another, but they couldn't come to a consensus on who would go. Sean said, I'm in charge of our Lord's care, and Benimaru mentioned something about defenses or whatnot. Gerudo also referred to his ability to carry things with his stomach and asked to be included. Honestly though, I don't care who goes. Wait a second, I just remembered that I can use Shadow Step as well. After I decided to return this way, the debate suddenly stopped. I was completely oblivious to dejected Ranga, who wanted to carry me, and disappointed Sean, who was hoping to ride with me. Well then, I'll be going on ahead, I declared and left using Shadow Step. Damn, this skill is convenient. It's like moving straight to the target through a different dimension. Oh, when I fly through that plane using flight magic. Feels like I'm moving really, really fast. In a blink of an eye, I reached the city. Seems like this skill can plot a course, not just to people and monsters, but also to locations I've previously visited. I still can fly, especially fast using flight magic. However, even at current speed, I can easily conclude that this is the best way to travel. I am completely satisfied with the results of this trial run. Ranga's group will probably arrive within 2 to 3 days. Hakuru and the High Orcs will be here a month from now at the soonest, so before they arrive, I have to prepare a place for them to live. While some small dilemmas are bound to arise, we've at least solved all the major problems from now. I just want to relax. Then, after everyone arrived on time and I divided up the responsibilities, things quieted down. The city was quickly taking on shape. The High Orcs, who arrived in less than a month, quickly learned the appropriate skills from the dwarves and skilled goblins. According to Kaijin, with time, they just might become as good as the dwarf manufacturing battalion, is what he said. Thus, having acquired new workers, we quickly rushed to finish all the previously neglected projects. At the same time, we started transporting goods and equipment. We dismantled the tents that were no longer in use and sent them to the orc communities. The goblins sent to them have been able to assert their leadership and have been helping establishing basic necessities. The moment we began exchanging goods, we also started establishing a solid system of exchange, though they ended up with what we may call ancient watering system. The fact that they came up with it is in itself wonderful. Besides, it's not like they are growing that many goods yet, so they can't take all the time they need to learn these things. There is very little variety right now, basically limited to growing a potato-like crop. It can grow even in harsh environments. It also has high nutritional value, and though you can't exactly call it luxury food, you can certainly live off of it. Thus, we spread the seeds among them and taught them how to grow it. Perhaps in 2 years, they could be self-sufficient. I surely hope so. Gerudo was very useful in transporting the seeds and tents, as he claimed he could. He swallowed the disassembled tents and thus distributed them among the villages. However, his success is largely thanks to the fact that he can now leap along with the Star Wolves during Shadow Step. He seriously tried hard to learn it and became the first to succeed with it. The rest went smoothly. That is, the trip to the mountain district alone on foot would have taken him many months. Instead, he was able to make a round trip in a single day. So we decided to put the skill to use and established a communications network between all the villages, basically postal service. For example, I can scribble some information on a woodblock and have it circulated among the communities. Though I must mention that only a few individuals here can read and write, and I am rather afraid of sending a verbal message. Who knows that it will become after being passed from village to village. Hopefully, they can learn letters more so sincere telepathic communication does not reach that far, but that's for later. Thus, we were able to establish some kind of connection between the many communities, and I must not forget about the guy that showed up, Gabil. That idiot suddenly showed up in our city. Yeah, ha ha ha. This Gabil has rushed over to become your strength, Rimuro-dono. He brazenly stated. Kill him, Shun asked me with a serious face, the kind of face that screams serious and reads absolutely serious. Gabil paled and I get carried away. I'm sorry. Please allow us to become your subordinates, Rimuro-sama. We will definitely prove ourselves useful. He immediately corrected himself, falling into a dogeza. Apparently, he was disowned, exiled. by his father and had no place to go. So since he was just so pitiful, I decided to welcome him in. But he'll get carried away again right away though. If I look closely, seems like the head guard captain is also among them. Captain San, why are you here? When I asked him, I came to serve Soisama, whom I greatly admire. What? So you didn't come because you admired this Gabil? I am different from the other muscle brains. That much is obvious. They started to quarrel among themselves. The majority, it seems, came out of respect for Gabil, but there were a few from the guard squad as well. Well, I don't see a big problem with them wanting to serve Zoe. If you want to serve Zoe, go and talk to him. But do note, he's a ninja. Will you be of any use to him? We shall. We are different from those naive idiots. What did you say? Don't underestimate me, little girl. Seems like they don't get along. Probably the fact that one started a rebellion and the other captured them afterwards led to a grudge forming between them. In any case, I won't meddle in that, because it's damn tiresome. Oh, and I later learned that the little girl is Gabil's younger sister. Since she's his relative, she's probably also a little weird. But her father is a wonderful guy. Well, since he'll be serving Zoe, I guess he'll be called Soko. And the other four are named Toka, Saika, Nanso, and Hakuso. Flower endings for girls and spare endings for boys. Of course, there is no greater meaning attached. These five served in the guard squad. I'll leave them to Zoe. The moment I named them, they began to evolve. Gabil observed this with great envy. However, I cannot name Gabil. He already has a name. Are you jealous, Gabil-kun? But you are already named Gabil. Gabil quickly looked at me, and then his body began to glow. That's a sign of evolution. The moment I thought that, a lot of magical energy suddenly left my body. Again? Seriously, but who could have thought I can overwrite names? Well, chances are this happened by pure chance. The one who named him had died, and we were on the same wavelength or something like that. I don't know exactly why it happened, but the fact remains, I renamed Gabil. I had wanted him to reflect a bit more, but just thinking how haughty he'll become after evolving, damn it, now I'm scared. While thinking these things, I entered sleep mode. The following day, I named the over 100 lizardmen soldiers. The names I assigned by picking letters of the alphabet. 20 names was my limit, since they were high-level monsters to begin with. Naming them uses up a lot of magical energy. The whole process took 5 days. Can't I just stop? However, somehow I feel like I'm working harder than I ever did in my past life. It's Gabil. It's all Gabil's fault. Since that's clearly the truth, let's fire a magic bullet at him. What are you doing? He exclaimed in surprise. Practice, I responded. He happily accepted that response. He really is an idiot, one that can compete with Datta. By the way, since it was pointless, I didn't fire a bullet at him. Gabil evolved into a dragon youth, who is covered by dense scales which act like a multi-layer barrier. Oh, and speaking of strange, the appearance of dragon youths varies by gender. The men don't look much different than when they were lizard men. They sprouted dragon wings and horns and are now covered in hard scales, just that much. While their dark green color also changed to dark purple. On the other hand, the women have a human appearance, rather beautiful, actually. Furthermore, they can also cover themselves with dragon scales, sprout wings, and horns at will. They look like I would if I were to transform into a human and combine myself with a black snake and giant bat. Perhaps that black snake was a dragon species. So since Gabil's vices annoyed me to no end, I also wanted to check out his defenses, and it's hard to check that by yourself. I fired a test shot at him. He was unharmed. I only shot a normal round that he normally received. That should have been 5 times stronger than usual. Well, maybe he's just so stupid he doesn't feel the pain, or even worse, he inherited my pain resistance. They do say that dinosaurs were dull to pain, so could he be now that they have evolved, what should we do about their housing? If they need water, there's that river flowing nearby, and it's a pain to make a village with only 100 people. There is that underground lake in the cave, but there's no fish and high magic energy and density. Well, since it's Gabil, he can handle that much, right? They could also cultivate hypothecras while they are at it. However, with sending them into the cave prove perilous to them, the 5 guards I left to Zoe. Hopefully he can raise them into fine ninja and kunoichi. Since I'm scared, I'll be sure to avoid their practices. Gabil's group is a problematic one, however. Even if I send them into the cave, they probably won't become monster feed, but as dragon youths, their fighting strength is B-rank. They should have no problem defeating most monsters in there, but the centipede could cause them some trouble. But since they are experienced warriors and are carrying weapons, they should be fine, right? I shouldn't worry about Gabil either. His evolution placed him at rank A-. He also obtained quite a lot of magical energy, so maybe he'll end up as an A rank. Gabil, I want to leave harvesting hypothecras in the caves to you. How about it? When I asked, please leave it to me. This Gabil will work himself to the bone for your sake. He casually responded, I'll leave it to him. Besides, if they start living there, they can also double as caves guards. And so Gabil's group started harvesting hypothecras in the caves. I had some lingering worries, so I came to check, but they seem to be doing just fine. And since they are constantly fighting, they are becoming stronger. Right now, they can bring down a centipede with just the 5 of them. How reassuring. I should also send them a new weapon, so I thought. And thus, some time passed. Asterisk. 2 months have passed. since I returned to the city. Just as everyone was getting used to life, prayer, and production was going smoothly, at the moment we finished the last house, the goblins, if I had to say about 8,000 of them, showed up and knelt before me saying, "If you may please make us your servants as well, we humbly beg you," they said, falling prostrate before me. I thought for a second, if I refused them, they may see conflict later on. Besides, I also strictly ordered not to discriminate against other races. If I send them away, that may set a precedent of discrimination. Let's accept them, so I decided, fine, but I will drive away anyone who's lacking. Is that fine? Of course, I accepted them lightly, but little did I know that another struggle was soon upon me. Again, my screams would be heard immediately after. To say the least, I used numbers and thus created the Green Corps. That was the moment the famous Green Corps was born, along with the Yellow Corps. They would be known as having no equal, the crux of my force. Right now, they were but 30 goblins, and a month later, I finally finished naming them. But this was not a complete tragedy. My total amount of magical energy has increased. I mean, I kept emptying them time after time again, so it was bound to increase a bit. And thus I finished naming the goblins. By the time I finished naming them, we also finished constructing housing for everyone. I had the goblins staying in a boarding house for now, but that's certainly better than camping out in a tent. We had a system for drawing water, a well in every house, so it is a pretty advanced city. Having a flush toilet is also heavenly. There is a need to carry the pumped out water to the toilet in a bucket, but strong monsters don't particularly mind. There are also those who don't excrete, though, me included. However, we can't have the city stinking. That much I will not permit. However, there are still many fields and animal farms that haven't been success. That haven't seen success. I want to make sure the city grows in abundance. I have finally acquired a land where I can live at peace. Here are those who were with me at the time. Oni, 6 people. Tempest Star Wolf, 1 member. Star Leader, 1 member. Star Wolves, 100 members. Goblin Riders, 100 people. Goblin King, 1 person. Goblin Lords, 8 people. Hobgoblins, 8,657 people. Orc King, 1 person. High Orcs, 1,984 people. Dragon Mutes, 106 people. And 4 dwarves supporting us. There are over 10,000 monsters inhabiting these lands. And thus we finish the city. End of the forest, disturbance arc. Chapter 45. Those who observe. Life in the Royal Capital Arc. Upon reading the report from the Espionage Division, the Dwarf King Gazeldwarg fell into deep consideration. The division, whom he asked to monitor the peculiar slang, has reported facts he could not ignore. A city built for monsters. Were they joking? He thought so for a second, but the spies never told jokes. They frankly delivered their report, and then the unbelievable tale continued. The Orcs' army had invaded. The despondent state of the Lizardmen, and the war ending due to the appearance of the mysterious army. The army probably are the clansmen of the Suds line. Holding up the letter to a candle, he burned it, and closing his eyes, he tried to sort all the new information. Currently, there were few casualties in the forest despite the rise in monsters' activity. It has increased slightly since Wendell was there, but is still similar to last year's statistics. They had been expecting the number to double at least, so someone is enforcing the order in the forest. Chances are that someone has something to do with that slime. And the orcs stopped their invasion. Had they, for example, rushed into dwarf cities, an insane number of people would have been killed. It would be foolish to expect that the orcs would not have attacked the dwarves, but he can't just praise good luck and forget about the whole incident. He must urgently meet the ones responsible. So the king quickly decided he definitely wanted to avoid making an enemy of them. Rather, he'd be happy if they could cooperate in the future. Perhaps they should carefully start negotiating with them while ignoring the deportation incident, or perhaps they should resort to a more reliable method. Having made this decision, the king began to move. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The 4 demon lords decided against independent action concerning the forest. There was no problem in this regard. However, they immediately started bickering when it came to who will monitor the situation. With an appearance of a little girl, the demon lord Milimnava had these thoughts. If I leave it to these blackheads, they are bound to mess it all up. After all, she saw them as little but muscle-for-brain idiots. Certainly, this was just the time for the cool and wise Milim to take the stage. The fact that she had thrown a table at Gelmo the moments prior completely escaped her. In fact, the girl herself was one of those muscle-for-brain idiots. Moreover, she was the most short-tempered and simple among them. What the rest would consider common sense was completely lost on her. The Harpy Queen and one of the demon lord's prey was bored. Milim will just go on a rampage again, so sending her is out of the question because the cleanup would be a pain. However, Frey could not work against her. Though they were both demon lords, there was a clear difference in power. Frey's kind are called the rulers of the skies, and she herself is known as the Sky Queen. It would be preposterous for her to lose against those who can't fly. Their special ability, magic jamming, can cancel out flight magic spells, so those who cannot fly normally would fall to their death. And although demon lords would probably survive even if they fell from high in the sky, they would be unable to land in a single hit on her. Those who can fly even threaten her. However, Milim Nava doesn't fit in this category. This girl is a dragonoid, the strongest queen. Her nickname, Destroyer, is not just for show. She doesn't use magic when flying. Rather, she uses her own wings. Nor does she depend on magic during combat, so Frey would be at complete disadvantage. Truly her natural enemy, so Frey was basically forced to go along with Milim's wishes. She merely hoped to be able to continue his passiveness for the rest of the conference. Hopefully, all will end peacefully. She thought and let out a sigh. Lycanthrope's Lion King Carrion felt pretty good. He had attended the conference to kill some time, but was able to see something interesting as a result. I have to make those Oni into my subordinates, he thought. Harpy Queen Frey was probably not interested. She probably just went along with Milin's wishes. As for Milin, she might be a short-tempered simpleton, but she is by no means stupid. Expecting the disagreement to devolve into a vote, Carrion brought friends who would support him, but an impudent woman, he thought, looking at Millie. What a narcissistic face she makes. In the first place, who would have expected someone like Kilmudo to be able to steer four demon lords into motion? That thought was brought up with the ghastly demon lord Clayman. Kilmudo was his protege, and the one receiving this request immediately went to Clayman to seek advice. Whatever you may think of him, Kilmudo was the type of person who would hide his true intentions behind the language of a polite gentleman. Now, Clayman and Millie, which was a more formidable foe. Battle strength-wise, Milim hands down. Carrion probably couldn't defeat her by himself. The very thought angered him, but fighting her without analyzing her battle abilities ahead of time would most likely lead to a defeat. On the other hand, if he properly prepared, he would certainly be her equal. No, maybe a bit better. Clayman is probably weaker than the rest. However, this case is all about ingenuity. In other words, the easy-to-deceive Million is out of the game. Frey, being Million's follower, is also out. So the real foe was Clayman, that Carrion was sure of. So how should we proceed? Carrion was deep in thought, planning his next step. Clayman wore a gentleman's smile while observing the other three demon lords. The one who introduced Kelmudo to the other demon lords was none other than him. He also pulled some strings to get this all arranged. Kelmudo had planned to get the demon lords' attention by presenting his magic items and armors, but that was bound to fail, so Clayman had to arrange the meeting. And he specifically called two demon lords simpletons here, fully expecting that the Harpy Queen Frey would also be brought along. Though Frey was careful and cunning, she seems to be uninterested in this incident, so everything went according to plan. Two demon lords who specialize in combat, no matter how hard they think they are sinfully not that right. Clayman can easily stall them, guiding the conversation the whole time. He even tried to get them on the topic of avenging Galmuda, with that thought he had thought to say, "Hey, just a thought, but how about we send our subordinates one each? That way I can also send one of my daughters." Frey declared with a somber expression. The other three immediately stiffened. While I could reject the offer, I would not be able to substantiate the refusal. The three thought they would just have to accept it, and after checking the other's expression, they nodded. Foo-foo-ah. I had just been planning to say the same myself. How strange. I as well. What to do if you took the words right out of my mouth? So it's decided. And thus, although each demon lord had intended differently, they decided to send a subordinate there. In reality, they intended to soon Rimurus village would be visited by three demons. Asterisk. Three adventurers were walking in the woods, Cabal, Ellen, and Guido. They came to the forest on subjugation request, and by the request of their guild master, they also were to visit Rimurus City. To the adventurers, that city was heaven, and the yakiniku was delicious. But by the time they returned, the village greatly changed and expanded. Now they could even have their equipment, services, and had a guest house prepared for them. At present, they brought spices and salt for the seasoning, not for their sake, of course. Patrolling the city is a hobgoblin wolf combo. Thanks to their speed, they have been ensuring the safety of the area. It's thanks to the city that the forest has gotten so much safer. Moreover, you can get various rare ingredients from them for free. Get this, parts of poisonous snake and horned deer on a good day. You can even get horn of an armosaurus. They could even use this to claim to have finished the guild's subjugation for requests. It is, of course, cheating, but that's only if you get caught. Well, unfortunately, the Roman's pre-guild's master Fuse, with whom they are affiliated, is already suspecting them, so they can't just suddenly bring back such trophies. Greed could only lead to their demise, so they decided to act with prudence, and so they are once again going on a subjugation request in the forest, merrily walking to Rimura City. But damn, the food is getting better and better. Isn't Shunan-chan as good as the cooks in the royal capital? Yeah, I'm usually a bit picky about food, but everything's great there. Listen up, guys. We aren't going there to eat, We actually have a legitimate reason to go there this time, remember? That's a stupid question. Yeah, it's been 2 months since we last visited. Plenty of time has passed. Yes, it's been a while, but have they finished the bats? I can't wait. The royal capital also has those. I'd love to go to them someday. The world travelers have been demanding them for a long time, right? I can see it becoming a habit though, right? So looking forward to it. But anyways, do you know, Guido, there is a wonderful system called mixed bathing in this world. Last time, Rimurusama passionately spoke about it. I'll make sure the city has it, Rimurudana explained. Do you get it, Guido? We have finally reached the promised land, where we can possibly enter the bus together with Shunasama and Shon-san. What did you say? Well, hey, I don't mind you guys having fun by yourselves over there, but you're getting left behind. Thus they continued on, aiming towards a yet unseen paradise. And during their journey, they would meet someone completely unexpected. Asterisk. The land of Pharma's kingdoms count. Bordering the Jura forest, it considered the forest in its sphere of influence. Patrolling the nearby villages was the Count's frontier garrison. They were appointed by Count Nidol Maigang himself and established plenty of roads to quickly get to villages during an emergency. Their captain's name is Yomo. Quick-witted and tough, he has a toned body darkened by the sun, neither tall nor short. He looked as if he never let his guard down, by no means ugly, rather, he has a pretty good face. There are 30 people in their organization, but it has 3 captains. Their fighting force is always separated into three groups, with one resting at base so that in case of an emergency they can move as soon as they hear of it. Thus, although they have searched for an appropriate location for their base, none of the villages fit their needs. Every one of them was built near the forest, creating a large distance between them. Thus, even the closest village on horseback with provision was a day's worth away. For the further ones, you need to prepare a carriage. The Count City is by far the most separated and this a poor place for their base. Moreover, the lifestyle in the villages could hardly be called pleasant, so the garrison didn't get the treatment they had wanted. That led to growing discontent among his subordinates. They have not received a large sum of war funds, and even if they had, they wouldn't be able to buy anything worth note. After all, they had to spend most of it just purchasing weapons and armors. And what had kept the soldiers away from mutiny was the fact that the villagers were truly painful. The ruffians and drunkards that the soldiers were, the villagers offered heartfelt hospitality. The villagers understood that they were who were there to protect them against monsters, which was true, and considering how honestly they were thanked every time, the soldiers decided to work hard for the villagers' sake, also because the monsters hadn't attacked as often as the Count had thought. There were no casualties among the garrison. Not just that, there were no heavily injured among them either. More bitter grass soup today. Thinking thus, brought his troops into the forest, not wide enough for a carriage, but a horse could traverse through it. The small twigs coming at them could easily be deflected with magic. If they had to take a carriage along, they'd have to go down the mountain highway road. That detour would cost them many days, hence the problem previously described. At that time, they ran into a group of people walking in the forest, adventurers from head to toe. Did they come on a subjugation request? He thought. News from here sometimes reaches the cities and requests are not uncommon, while some adventurers are sent on behalf of the ghost researchers who are attempting to learn thought transmission. If there was an actual subjugation request, it would have been announced at every nearby city. That is to prevent multiple groups from fulfilling the same request. If they were aiming for a giant bear, then unfortunately the soldiers have already killed it. From how they look, they seem rather capable. Perhaps it would be smart to make acquaintance. With that thought, he called out, "Hey, you guys, what are you doing here? If you came for a giant bear, you've wasted your time, you know." And when he did, no, well, I guess subjugating a monster is one of the reasons. Then, what are you saying? Our objective is subjugation, isn't it? Right, the official story. Crap. They were too careless. Yomo listened to their exchange while surrounding them with troops. Were they foreign spies? While he had no duty to capture them, he'd be troubled if they caused trouble. Why would they be here if not on a request? He thought. I repeat, what are you doing here? Answer me. If you don't, you might lose your lives. He didn't plan to kill them, but needed to intimidate them a bit. Their exchange abruptly ended, and the thing is, we were heading to a city. Their representative, a large man, answered, "There is no city further in. No doubt about it. They are suspicious. Should I hand them over to the Count? But I really hate that guy. What to do?" "No, really, a kind monster. Hey, what are you doing revealing this? Don't look at me. If they tell you, don't come again. We'll go on without you, you know." They are too suspicious to ignore. While looking at three bickering, Yomo decided he had to confirm their words. "Where are you adventurers from?" "Answer. Don't attempt to hide it. These are the lands of Pharma's Kingdom's Count, under the protection of the frontier garrison. I am their captain, Yomo." The three exchanged glanced and seemed to have given up. While apprehending spies was not part of his duties, it was something he could do. He couldn't leave them alone after all. The countries have agreed on not employing spies. However, whether any country has actually kept that promise is a different story. Who knows what country they've come from, but only an aged spy would pretend to be an adventurer. Spies would normally take their lives if cornered, but these guys don't seem to plan on it. Are they really adventurers? When he thought that, no, honestly, but it's a monster city. You wouldn't believe that if we had told you, would you? Besides, we don't want to cause trouble for Rimuro-san. I'm not involved in this. The one who spilled the beans is you, Dana. What would we do if we were banished from there? And again, they began fighting. Amazed, Yomo thought, could they perhaps not be lying? If so, he had to check it out. After restraining the three and throwing them on a horse, he had them show the way to a city yet unseen. And the younger, to a city yet unseen. And what was that? Sorry. And a monster who would play a large role in their lives. End of chapter 45.